What's going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over the overnight builds for this evening. And the overnight builds encompass the LOL slate as well as the PGA Round 2 Showdown slate. Going to go over what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. And for those that are joining us on State Kings in the Sweat, you'll be able to get a behind the scenes look at what we have and what we need to root for and how we came about getting to that. So I guess let's start with, I think, the more interesting piece being the PGA Showdown slate. And this is why. Um, some of the more sophisticated DFS players pay attention to particular weather that affects different portions of the field. There are sometimes where if you go out really, really early in the morning, there's a real bias towards that group playing very, very well. And sometimes the opposite. Sometimes the afternoon wave tends to do better. And the attention is paid much greater to that in Showdown than in Classic Slate because you're only being judged on one round. So people go really, really crazy trying to figure out which part of the field is going to have the advantage given the way the wind distributes and things like that. And as a matter of fact, day two here does rate to be very favorable to those players who start early. There's going to be probably some significant rain, which you think is a negative, but what happens is the greens become very, very soft, which makes them very more receptive to the approach shots, which means that players, that are playing in these conditions typically do better. And as the greens get firmer later in the day, those uh, those golfers are going to have a tough time with their approach shots staying on the green, so they're going to be a little bit worse off. Some people are projecting actually a full one stroke difference between the morning wave and the afternoon wave. So what happens here is there's this dynamic of double counting. And what do I mean by that? Everything that I just said with respect to the waves and weather and all that stuff, all of that is factored into the projections. Okay. If you are subscribing to any site that is worth even a cent, those factors are already going to be baked into the projections. And what people tend to do is, as content providers and touts and whatever, is they tend to overstate things and double count them. So if somebody is in the morning wave, for example, and they have a good projection, or they look good, people say, well, these guys look really good, and they're also in the morning wave, so they're extra good. It doesn't work that way. You can't have it both ways. You can't bump their projection up and then also say that they're in the morning wave. The type of thing is already factored into the projection. The other important point is that everything that I said being baked in the projection is going to be factored in to the ownership. In other words, people are simply going to play these golfers more if it's very obvious that they should. That's just the way DFS works. So it's not so easy to just say, okay, these guys are going to do better. Let's jam them in because that's what most people are going to do. And so you always are having to walk this tightrope between doing what's most likely to win and doing what's most likely to win the most money or something like that. So what I have found is actually, well, two things. Number one, there are two ways to kind of approach this. One, which has quite a bit of merit, is to simply ignore it. In other words, just let the projections just do their thing. Let SaberSim do its thing. And what it's going to do is it's going to take into consideration the projected ownership of all these golfers and actually make the determination of whether the increase in projection overcomes the popularity they're going to be. And don't make any changes at all um, based on your extra knowledge because it's really not extra knowledge if it's already baked into the projections. Okay. The other way to deal with it is to go completely overboard, which does sometimes have merit. So like let's say you ran a build and you were getting, say, I don't know, 50, 60%, 60 to 70% of your golfers coming from that morning wave. What you could do is basically just X out everybody that's not in the morning wave. And what that's going to do is it's going to really take that take and bet a lot on it. Okay. And I don't know, people tend to not have it in them to go full on with that particular take. But that approach, honestly, to me, just kind of violates process, you know? If you're going to subscribe to good projections and good optimizers and good tools, doing stuff like that just kind of, I don't know, it just is kind of a waste. I mean, it really ignores the benefit of having all these good projections and these good tools if you're just going to make kind of an arbitrary decision like that. To ignore them is essentially what you're doing. So for me, and I'm glad I talked through this, I just want to ignore all of it. Okay. I just want to trust my projections to take into account these things, trust my ownership projections to take into account how often the field is going to play them. I just kind of run them as is. And all that is a very long-winded way of saying that I'm just going to play this normal. Okay. And you are going to hear from now until, the end of the slate, really, about how much better the early slate is, the early golfers are than the late slate golfers. And that is probably true, but all of that's being factored in already. So, what we've done is we have uploaded our projections here, but what we have not done is uploaded our custom ownership projections. So we have to actually do this again. I don't mean our ownership projections, they're already in there, but I want to create my own contest field based on the ownership projections. Because I mean, even more than usual, you know, factoring in ownership on a slate like this is very, very important. So what it's doing right now is it's building a 5,000 lineup set um, based on my projections and based on the projected ownership. So, like, this is what I predict the field is going to do. Okay. And I feel that this prediction is better today than what SaberSim is projecting. So, what's going to happen then is then when we run our contest sims, we're going to be comparing it to a different field than most people that are using SaberSim are comparing it to, getting us different. And I think it's not just getting us different. I think we're better in this particular slate, this particular situation. So so then what we're going to do is we're going to go into contests and we are going to select that contest field as our representative field. So the way you do that is instead of using flagship NME, you're going to go and use, the this field that I just created. Now the problem is that my ownerships are really just based on my like lottery ownerships. So I can't really apply those to the big buy-ins. We have really no choice other than to use the SaberSim contest fields for those particular contests. So we are going to stick with those, and then we're going to actually build our lineups. Build lineups, and boom. Okay, so it's building the lineups and then it's simming them. And I'm just gonna just fire these off and then I'll show you guys who I have. The other thing that I'm not doing that you may have seen me doing in past slates is I'm not making any requirements of minimum uniqueness between lineups. In a recent update, SaberSim apparently accounts for how many lineups you're playing in diversifying your portfolio. I haven't really back tested that, but I'm willing to take its word for it on that. Um, and you'll, so what we're going to do is we're going to, last sim was 1235. So we're going to hit save the contest and you'll see that this changed to 1203. But the one thing it didn't do is it didn't do this in order. So what it did was it filled the par four first. So with that, when that happens, you run the risk of getting your best lineup in that contest instead of the signature hole, which is what I want, because that's the 555. So we'll do it again. And now we should be good to go. So we will download these and then we will upload them. And then we will take a look at what our exposures are. And I would not be surprised if we had very little, if any, Scotty again today. Um, the way if the showdown pricing works, it's just kind of difficult to justify paying that much for anybody, really. So we can look at it from here under view exposures for golf. We want just the showdown, actually, showdown 1, round 2, or whatever. And it looks like JT Poston is going to be the highest owned. Then Spawn, Smalley, Rye. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have 0 Scotty, but let's just confirm that. Like 2%. I mean, so it's like nothing. Okay. And then as far as entry fees go, posted as well. So you could tell who's probably in the 555. It's gonna be probably these, like 5 of these 6, I guess. But if you don't want to look at it that way, we could pull up here. We're going to deal with this LOL thing in a moment. So in the 555 signature hole, we're going to have something that looks like this. Okay. And some of them at 1230, like Fleetwood is coming in at 1230, which is not the wave that I said, but he's probably going to be lower owned as a result of that, and that's already been factored in. So that's basically it for the showdown slate. Hopefully we all know who to root for. We don't know all the combinations to root for, but that's good enough. All right, so let's now do the LOL slate. It's kind of a nasty 2-game slate where we have a minus 30 to 1 favorite, and the other game is very even. So you're just not gonna get, I don't think, any DRX. If anything, you might get a lineup or two with the team position in it. If, let's say, lineup construction is such that to get all the big guns you want, you're gonna have to eat some salary somewhere. It's possible that we do get some DRX team in there. But that's pretty much all you can get when you have a 21 underdog. So there's gonna be quite a bit of duplication, I think, in these builds. So in situations like this, the Sims can really help us out. Let's first upload our projections. And I wonder why we have a 0 ownership on Ruler. This is a little bit, oh, because we have them over here. We don't put our captain ownership in there. This is where we put everything. And now we're going to build here. We already put our most of our contests in, right? The one we did not put into the Triumphant Warrior, so let's put that in. So that's only going to be about 12 entrants and 33% still for first, and then 20% cash, one entry. So now we're at least ready to this one or this one. Ready to build our lineups. We should be ready to go. So we don't really need to build that many. Maybe 600 at the most. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm not, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to play some 4-2s tonight if we want to get it remotely unique. Otherwise, it's just gonna be some Gen G combination with non-Jim, some Gen G combination with KT Rolster, and we're gonna end up chopping with a bunch of people. So I think we might have to go for some 4-2s. Okay, so now before we run the Sims, I wonder what we'd end up getting. Wow, this is very surprising. We actually would be getting some DRX. God knows how. Um, boy, oh boy, how would that even be? Oh, probably because with 4-2s, with some DRX in the cat in the team, probably. Okay, that would make some sense. But let's run the Sims here and see what happens in that situation. So these I'm kind of interested in, where the non-shim and KT Rolster just kind of split results, sort of. Again, it's not exactly the greatest as far as likelihood of winning, but as far as likelihood of winning the most money, I think that these types of bow wow lineups are kind of what you want to do here, and just kind of hope that the right combination comes up because in the two game slates, you're just not going to get away with playing these straight 4-3s and making any money. So what we've done is we've relied on our projections, we've relied on the Sims, and this is what we're going to get, like it or not. So we're going to, I mean, we'll get an idea of what we have here. I mean, right now, 98% Gen G, but it's just kind of like spread out all over the place what kind of Gen G we're getting. Okay. Um, as far as 4-man stacks, not all of them are going to be Gen G. As a matter of fact, I'm even having 1% exposure to DRX. Um, it's just the way it is. So why don't we could do this kind of one tournament at a time. We could do the double buff first, I guess. Save into there. And then we can go the team fight next. And then finally we can do the Triumphant Warrior. And just to look at what the Triumphant Warrior would look like. This would be the chalkiest of them, the four-man Gen G with the three-man KT, Canyon and the captain, etc. So let's save this one, and we should be good to go. We'll download this. And again, it's not the greatest slate in the world to play, but I think this is the way you have to play it. Play a bunch of 4-2s, run your sims, trust your projections, and just, and what you're hoping for is some like wild finishes, honestly. So like this one, we have in all three contests. Most of them we do have both in the we have lineups in both the team fight and the other one and the double buff. Look at all that Canyon in the captain. But we have others, so we've got some variants, we've got some chances. Let's take a look and see actually what we put in our contests here. Team stacks. So we do have 100% Gen G. Well, actually, wait a minute. Why is it showing 0 DRX here? Well, let's take a look and see. Let's download these from DraftKings. We'll upload them. Now we should be able to see a little better. Curious why I'm not getting any DRX over here yet. I know and I see that. Oh, I did not play DRX after all, did I? Okay. All right, so that's pretty much it. It's going to be a Gen G fest, but you'll see only half of them will be 4-3s. The rest will be these wild 4-2s, and we'll see what happens. That is going to do it. Good luck, everybody.